you will have to remember that you saw an old lady who told you the truth and only the truth. And you have to remember and never let happen again. This was the worst genocide, killing of people, of humankind. That's what my aim is. And I never stop doing it as many times as devoted teachers like your teacher call me, and I never say no. Last year I was here too, and as long as I live, I will, because that's my mission. So let me tell you from the beginning. I was born in Romania. And of course you don't know Romania. It's a small country in Europe. In Transylvania, now I want to have some smiles. Transylvania, I see one. What do you know about Transylvania? Do you think that they don't know Dracula? I'm his niece, Dracula's niece. Okay, finally. That's the introduction only. But Transylvania is known by Dracula. So, I was born in Transylvania, a very rich county. Mountains, rivers, minerals. Everybody was happy in Transylvania. There was no difference between religion, race, nothing like this. Until Hitler was in the war, and his first allies, the Hungarians were right near Romania, Hungarians, offered their help to Hitler. So in the recompense, in paying something to Hungary, they just took Transylvania and gave to Hungary. And that's where the whole problem started. So, as I said, with the Hungarian getting Transylvania, all the laws that Hitler, and I say Hitler, not the German people, Hitler, all the laws that had against Jews were transmitted to Hungarians, and they followed the Nuremberg laws, and that's where our tragedy started. I had a small family, my father, my mother, my brother, and I. But my father had 11 siblings. My mother had 4 brothers. They had children. I had grandmothers. 39 members who were in my family. Out of 39 members, only my mom and survived. By sheer luck, only the 2 of us, the 37 children who were gassed, old people who were gassed and died, others by malnutrition, others by contagious disease, and so forth. Only 2 people survived. When it happened that the Germans and Hungarians occupied Romania, immediately in June, they told no more schools for Jewish children. Just because they were Jewish, they could not go to kindergarten, elementary, middle school, you name it, college, out. No more schools. Now, you are here. You have a beautiful school. One day not to have to school, not bad. A vacation, very good. But you have vacation every day, and you don't see your friends every day, and you don't see teachers like Miss Williams. You are bored. You are not educated. You have no life. And that's how I felt, and I was 13 years old that time. The Holocaust was later in 1944. But this happened in June when I was a 7th grader. Now what do I do every day? It was a problem for my family, for my father and mother. So all those people who lived in Transylvania decided that they have to do something about it so we don't be on the streets the next September. Luckily, there was a famous mathematician who decided that he has to find a school, a building, not like yours, a building where these children who are on the streets in September, they should have a school. The Christian, the priest, this famous mathematician, and the rabbi of our little town that I know about, went to the government, now German, Hungarian, to ask permission for a school, any school. Just let them study. Don't stop the education of our children. Do you hear me over there? So then they begged, and the priest had an important role in this, that decided that in the middle of Transylvania, as I told you, Cluj, C-L-U-J, was a school for 1,200 students of the whole Transylvania. That school gave me an education for 4 years, 3.5 years, that I will never forget. And I urge you, whatever you can get in your high school, take it. Every teacher who is here to teach you. Don't neglect anything that you can absorb. That is my base of education. The philosophy of the school was, nobody can take away what you have in your head. They can take away, and they did, our houses, my father's business, valuables, even a wedding ring. They took everything from us. But what that school gave me for a lifetime stays with me. We had to prove that we need the school, that we deserve the school. So the teachers gave us everything, and we wrote everything down. In Christmas time, I went home from Cluj to our little town, and my father, Clara, sit down. Tell me, what do you learn in that school? It was hard for them, you know. From a little manufacturing, my father had, shoe manufacturing. My mother and my father worked for schooling my brother and I. My brother went to Budapest, he was a pianist, and I was in a regular Jewish school. So they supported the school, the children's parents who were there. So tell me, what do you study? And I told him math and science and social studies, all that what we learned. And I said, and languages. So stop. What kind of languages? So I told him Romanian, because we lived in Romania. French. French was like Spanish here in the United States, like a second language. Hungarian, because now belonged to Hungary. Hebrew, because it was a Jewish school. German was a sine qua non. And then my father stopped me and said, well, where is English? I was 13 years old. And I said, Dad, I don't know where is English. We have 5 languages. Latin, that was also important, the base of Romanian, French, and the others. And he said, I don't care. I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters in the United States. They came somewhat before the war to the United States to a relative. And who is going to speak to them after the war? The war will end soon, my father said. So you must learn English. What do? In those days, children obeyed to their parents. My father said, go to the principal, 13 years old girl, and tell him that you want to learn English. There must be somebody who knows English there. So I obeyed. After the vacation, I went up to the principal's office. I begged for audition, and he said, "What's going on?" I said, "My father wants me to learn English." "Clara, we don't have here English." "I don't care. My father wants me to learn English." It happened that the German teacher who taught us German had a secondary language that she could teach, and she said, "I can teach an English class." I was one who asked. At 3 o'clock, there were 30 other kids who signed up for English. 30. In the afternoon, 3 times a week. That's where my English started. So if it's not good enough, then you suffer. It's true that I had 4 years of English in college, and then now I live now in United States from 1962. God bless America. But I still have an accent. If you understand me, it doesn't bother me. If you don't, then it bothers me. So this was my high school. I can't tell you how comfortable we were. The only problem was that we never socialized with our Christian friends. We were like isolated. They wanted to know, what is Clara doing? Why is she not here? In your age, a child doesn't understand prejudice. But we had to go along. That was an order. Now, in 1944, March, in the middle of my sophomore, how many sophomores are here? Oh, that's what it happened. In my sophomore year, in March, without finishing the eighth grade, not eighth grade, it's sophomore year, they said, no more school. Go home, whoever lives in Transylvania. We have other plans for your parents, for you, and the Jews. Started wearing yellow stars, so everybody should know that we are leprous or something. Jude, I don't know if you ever saw that. You could see in Elie Wiesel's book the sign, star and Jude inside. So everybody knew not to talk to us, not to socialize with us, not to go to a movie. It was terrible for a child at the age of 16, 17. And in May, they announced already that we will be taken out of our house. We will be somewhere. We never knew 1 hour before what happens next. The whole family should leave our home for I don't know how many years. Leave everything behind. Take a luggage with you. Some blankets, some food that is not perishable, like potato, rice, marmalade that my mother used to make, not buying to Trader Joe's. But we had to take with us because we didn't know where and what we will eat. As I said, this was May 3rd. A little earlier than we are in March 25. May 3rd, we were taken all to the train station. That we knew, the train station. The train station had a terrible situation because old people, children crying, we are hungry. But they didn't last long because they took only to the next place that was a ghetto. And I want to know who knows what is a ghetto, because we have names of ghetto even in United States. So, anybody knows what is a ghetto? Tell me.
Ghetto is the place where they sent all the Jews for...
Yes, we have names for Jews in 1944. But there were ghetto before, and there is one that they call a ghetto in New York, the Harlem. What a difference. It's a beautiful place, the Harlem, but most of the people are blacks. So they say they are isolated. They are not. We were isolated from the whole world. And you know what was our home? A brick factory. They took out the bricks, and all the families, 10,000 people, were in one brick factory. From a place like this, like 5, 6 families had little cubicles. I think you know what I mean. The families were divided by blankets that we brought from home. 16 of us were sleeping on the floor like sardines, but the family was together. It was a ghetto for families. It's a concentration of families, and then next, we didn't know what will come. I have to give you one incident to give you some imagination what was going on there. For 10,000 people, there were no toilets. Bushes around the brick factory, but no toilets. The government and the Germans and Hungarian officials realized that is impossible. They have to do something about it. And I look at you and I find this guy and this guy, 6 strong guys, were called from the meeting. You are going to build latrines for toilets. What is a latrine? You don't know. It's a trench, a ditch, 1 yard deep, 1 yard wide. When you are, I have to be clear about this. People, men, women, went to this ditch to do number 1 and number 2 in front of everybody. Guards standing and watching us. Didn't we hide some diamond or something in our stool? Those 6 boys were strong. They could dig. It was no problem with that, except I had a boyfriend that time, 17 years old. Don't you have a boyfriend? I had a boyfriend. He was strong and tall. And he stood up and he said, I am not going to do this. This is terrible. He was 19 years old. This is terrible, humiliating. It's against any hygiene. Even my dog, who has to do number 1 and number 2, goes to a shade to do this. How can you expect us to live in this ditch? Well, everybody was flabbergasted, and the guard who was there looked at them, the 6 boys. Okay, I will show you how. How can you do it? They took him, they hang him to a tree with his hands up. And they said, this is what we can do. If you disobey to any order of Germans or Hungarians officials, this is and more what we can do to teach you not to do that. He didn't die. He was pulled up, his toes barely reaching the ground, and I had to watch that. And after 20 minutes, he fainted. But the guy was never the same, ever, ever. Depressed, humiliated, tortured. This was a lesson to us that we can't say anything. Because wherever I speak, there is only the one who asks me at the end of my speech, why didn't you rebel? Why couldn't you do something? They had the gun, and we had nothing. And we always hoped, because hope never leaves you, we always hoped that maybe somebody will have new laws and we will survive. We had no idea what's coming. This was one example in the ghetto. And I don't want to go on because we were only 4 weeks there. We ate on bricks, barbecue, not like yours. Three bricks. My mother used to make a bean soup, dry bean soup, and that was for 4 weeks in the ghetto. 3.5. When we saw finally on the railway, we saw trains, cattle cars, not real trains, cattle cars. And at the end of May, they were all ready for us. They decided to take us somewhere else. Finally, we should wear something and do something. We lived there like parasites, they said. We didn't do anything but carrying water from the river. It was rain and inundated the whole brick factory. So those kind of things we did, but not really helping Hitler's war. So they took with us 70 in a wagon, 70 people, old, young, babies, to go somewhere. We were never told where. And that's when they took us to Auschwitz. I have to show you, we are in Romania here, and they took out to Auschwitz. That was Poland. Anybody sees something? Poland. It was Oswiecim when it was Poland. Now Germany occupied Poland, and that's where the concentration camp, extermination camp was built. I heard, I don't know for sure, that they started in 1936 to build this camp. They knew already that there will be something terrible there. The crematoriums, we didn't know anything about it. At 11 o'clock, we got out from the train after 3 days being in the train, and they started a selection of old from young, women from men, and those who went to the right were chosen for work. Those who were selected to the left were chosen to die. Everybody who was below 13 or 14 years old and were no youth for Hitler, they were killed by gas that night when we arrived. Because the healthy one, and by sheer accident, my mother was chosen among 70 people, the only woman who was 44 years old, and we were together. The rest were working possibility for Hitler's war. We went to a barrack where we went for a shower. For 3 days, we didn't have any way of cleaning ourselves. That's what they said. The others went, the little ones, the old, my grandmothers, both of them, they went somewhere else that I found out after the war what happened to them. We were separated forever. My father and my brother went with the men, and my father, who was an eternal optimist, he said, "Bye, don't worry, tomorrow we will meet again. The war will be over soon." At 11 o'clock at night, he told me this. I never saw him again. They were taken for work. We found out later. And we were in a barrack to wash, to take off our dress, everything. Where are the girls? Pitch naked, standing in line to have our hair shaved. I just one of them. I had hair like this young lady here. Chestnut brown, long. Very proud of it. In 2 minutes, I had no hair. They shaved like they shaved the animals. It was completely so bald that my mother didn't recognize me. Where is my child? And the woman who was doing this job was doing it from morning till night. Sang a song, a known German song. And I told her, "How can you sing, for God's sake, when you do this to young women, our crown, our hair?" She looked at me, she said, "You snotty girl, what do you know about how can I do this? How can I keep my sanity to do this work every day?" And there are 2 months or 3 months that they were doing it because they killed those people who did this job so they wouldn't be witness what the Germans did to us. And you asking me that I sing. I saw my parents killed in front of me in Poland. And I have to do this job. So I sing. But she saw how innocent and naive I was. Said, I give you one advice. Get out of Auschwitz. That's the worst place in the world. Do I have something to do with that? Nothing. They put us in the shower. The shower for the others was gas. For us was a towel that they gave us, and our shoes we could keep. The rest was taken away. I got a gray dress with a number on it. I'm not tattooed because I only was in Auschwitz for 8 days. Every day standing on line, waiting for rain to come because we had no water. There were holes in the barrack, and that's what we were drinking for 8 days. And standing in, read Night, by the way. Elie Wiesel who read Night? Okay. Then you know about this kind of barracks because he describes it. How in the barrack there were at least a couple of bunks. Not in ours. We slept on the floor. And we stood on line. It's not on line, it's a roll call. And they looked at us if we were strong, if our hands were good shape, if we don't limp, then we will be sent somewhere. Because Auschwitz was a concentration camp and an extermination camp. So those who stayed in Auschwitz, they could find every day some work. If they didn't find, they were in gas. So, at the end of 8 days, we were chosen to go somewhere, we didn't know where, somewhere where we really will work and produce for Hitler's war. So that was from Auschwitz, okay, we were taken to Latvia. The capital of Latvia is Riga. Look, right near the Baltic Sea, there was a concentration camp that was called Kaiserwald. 10,000 or 20,000, I am not sure how many there were, but it took us 3 days to get there. And it was a big change because we really had a big barrack, and we had even a wooden bed bunks. But we had to work in a plant where we produced gunpowder. How? The Germans knew already what is recycling. Remember those big batteries that you have also in the store, in CVS? We had to open and put separately the aluminum and the wires, and in the middle there is a mushy stuff, and that was put in big piles. They took and made gunpowder from it. So our work was very precious. Gunpowder for Hitler's war. 60 women, young women, like you, and I was 17. And my mother, the only one who was not. In big tables, we put, the stuff was prepared for us. We only had a knife, and that's what we worked with. Now, you tell me, if you could, this young lady here, could you work from 12 o'clock at night, 6 o'clock at night, next day 6 o'clock, which was with very little food? Could you work and not fall asleep? It was impossible. We struggled, we tried to work, but by 12 o'clock, everybody had her head on the desk. So there was one German, I always have to stop and tell you, watch out. Not all Germans were bad. They were intoxicated by Hitler's idiosyncrasy. They had to obey. 90% had to obey. But there were still a couple of human beings who thought of it. I don't see you either. There is another guy there. Anyway, in this place, he was an older guy who he couldn't go to the front to fight for Hitler's war. So he supervised the prisoners who worked on gunpowder. But when he saw us 60 women sleeping, how can he produce? First, he beat us up every night, going around with like a baseball bat. He didn't kill. They needed us. He went around and every woman was beaten up who tried to sleep. And when he got at the end, the other people tried to sleep again. So he figured out something, how to save his work or produce, and how not to beat us every night. He couldn't do it anymore. He came to me and he said, "You little girl, you speak German." I said, "Yeah, I do." "Then you must sing in German." I said, "Yeah, I sing because my father was a frustrated singer. He had to come home to do the business, but he really wanted to be a singer. And he taught us, my brother and I, that we should, if we sing from an Italian opera, we have to learn the song in Italian. If we do that in French, then French. And I had to learn 2 songs in German because Lehar was writing in German and Schubert was in. So he taught me a lullaby and he taught me a love song. Well, we didn't need a lullaby. We could sleep very well without a lullaby. But I sang a love song. And he said, at 11 o'clock, when you see that the people are tired already, ready to sleep, you just start this German song. And I started to sing. Everybody knew the melody because we were educated. But they didn't know the text. And they started to sing. In 1 week, everybody was singing and we worked. We produced. So he proved that with education, what can we do with our body? And he produced. Again, learn languages. That saved my life. Our life, 60 people. It lasted for 3 months. One day, a mechanic who took care of our machines came to me and said, "Watch out, you will be selected again. Don't you see the Russians are coming? And they are coming from east. They are trying to come East Prussia and then Poland and meet in Germany with the Allies, Americans." And they came and we had to evacuate Riga from Jews. They would see what they did to us. So he told me, "Do something about your mother. Your mother is the oldest in this crowd. She's pale. She lost a lot of weight, like 30 pounds in 3 months." He brought me a piece of red paper to put rouge on my mom's face. And sure enough, next day, there was a selection. We never stood in the same row because they like to separate mothers from each other, sisters. So I heard the guy who was selecting stopping in front of her. How old are you?" She was 44. She said 39. The guy's like crazy. "You are crazy. You want to die? Who is going to help Hitler to win the war? You are not 39. You are 31. He lifted her dress, saw her strong legs. "You can work a lot. You can help to win the war." I was happy. I heard in the back, "My mom is safe." Second selection, she made it. Next day, we were taken to the shipyard. There was a big merchandise ship for 3,000 people. 3,000 people in one ship. 6 in a bunk bed, slept for 3 days. This was from Riga, where I was, in Riga, all coming south. It's called East Prussia. East Prussia, because it's between Russians and the rest of Europe. We were taken by ship this time. Those who died, they were just put in the Baltic Sea. Those who survived went to another concentration camp, and they will tell us what will be the work. Now this, I have to stop only for the girls to tell a little story. In Stutthof, people had already lice. The reason why they shaved our hair, there was no way of being clean or washing every day your hair. But they couldn't do this for the dresses. So the dresses had to be thrown away because we had lace already under armpits. I don't want to talk more about. So I was in a group where somebody had scarlet fever from the lace. They took everybody's in that group the dress, whether she had or not lace, and they gave another dress to us. Girls, I got a dress, green. How much time do I have?
15 minutes.
Okay. Green, I have to tell them this. Green satin dress, open here like this. Short, flare. It was a cocktail dress of somebody. And that's what my dress was from August till January 21st or more, when I got another dress. That dress looked like I was a prostitute. I said open and light. It was later winter. This was in August. And I saw myself in the train that had a window. When we went from Stutthof to the next place, I saw myself in the window. And I said, my God, short, no hair, almost no hair. How do I look? I ran to my mom. I said, Mom, why don't you tell me how do I look? This is terrible. I look like a. And she said, no, that's fine. Just remember that you have a party this afternoon, a tea party, and you will be the most beautiful. Don't worry. It's a cocktail dress. That was my mom. That was my support. For 11 months, I would never survive if she wasn't there with me. So that was the dress. I wanted you to have a kick out of it. Then we started a new work. Have you ever heard about anti-tank trenches? Anti-tank trenches. I look at you. What is it? It is a big trench, all the East Prussia, from here to here. You see this line. We dug trenches, 6 yards wide, 6 yards deep, as a trapeze, narrowing at the bottom and larger on the top. And the tank, the Russian tank, supposed to fall in this pit, and that will be the end of them. 1,000 women. We did this from August, at the end of August, till January 21st, when we were liberated. At the end, we couldn't even dig because the ground was so frozen that shovel and all that didn't help. But we did 12 hours a day, from 7 o'clock till 7 o'clock. I described it, what circumstances. It's one dress, girls, no panties, no stockings. Our shoes, a dress, and the blanket that they gave us to sleep with, or that was our coat. And with string, you hid your face, only the face and the eyes were showing, and we dug. One day in November, my mother was very sick. There was no way to stay in the camp, and we had to go to work. This is in November, raining. Now, you have to know that people like you, 16, 17 years, German boys, were trained to hit the person who's to work, not the guards, not gun. He had to go around and see how fast we work. And my mother was sick. She slowed down. She worked outside of the trench. I worked inside. And I heard the guy coming and hitting my mother. You old bag, you don't work hard enough. You slow down. How can we win the war if people work like this? And hitting my mother. How would you feel? I got out from that trench, 6 yards high, and I faced him and I said, stop it. You can't do this. This woman is working from morning till night with the food that you are giving to her. And I told them what food. And you hit her and torture her. You know, this woman is my mother. I didn't brag with it, you know, because I was afraid that they separate us. But this time I told, this woman is my mother. Don't you have a mother? The 16-year-old boy was red. And he said, I have a mother, but she's German. In other words, all the other mothers should drop dead. But you know what? He stopped, turned around and left. All the girls around me, Clara, you are crazy, now he will bring the guards, what will happen to us? I didn't care. He stopped beating my mother. And I went home, and at night I felt the bruises on her back. I said again, I don't mind. At least he stopped and didn't continue to hit her. You know what happened? Next day, at 12 o'clock, I know the sun was up, came to me directly. He had a carrot in his hand and half of a cigarette. And he said, smoke this, you will be less hungry. Eat this carrot, it has vitamin in it. Now what happened in this boy? Tell me. What could a gesture like this do to a miserable prisoner? I hoped that everybody has somewhere a little of a heart. When I mentioned his mother, in that minute he became a human being. So, as a conclusion of knowing people, you could find in everybody, somewhere in his heart, a place where you can reach him, educate him. And one more advice. We had no weapon, so we couldn't fight back. Now we are free. You know what is our weapon? It's not atom bomb. It is education. If you educate your people, if you talk to them, if you put something in their brains, you reach their heart. That's my opinion. Yesterday in the Moore Park, I was speaking, and one guy asked me, what motivated you to go on and still have some hope? And I told him, I hope because human beings are human. You just have to reach them. If you want to reach them with atom bomb, they die, but they are not educated. Do you believe in this? Because I do. That's what keeps me going, to tell that education is our only weapon to coexist. Because you'll find out now that what my Christian friends did to me when I came home. So, after this scene, we worked more as much as we could, and finally, January 19th, they put us together. The Russians were in the neighborhood. We heard the cannons. And I was 18 years old, my birthday. My mother, in my back, has a little package in her hand, and in an old newspaper, and he said, Clara, darling, you are 18 years old. Happy birthday. I said, yeah, thank you. I look at the little package. There were 3 slices of bread, a little margarine in between. She made a layer cake for my birthday in concentration camp. I was 18 years old. And I said, Mom, where did you get the bread from? We had 1 slice in the morning, and if we ate, we starved till next day. She didn't eat for 3 days to collect her bread and make a layer cake for my birthday. And I keep telling my kids, and you are still kids, don't ever criticize a mother. When she's in need, she's there in need. She washed my only dress when she could, and I stayed with the blanket on me, just to show that she's a mother. Her faith in God was so strong that I couldn't argue with her. When in the anti-tank trench, I don't know if there is any Jewish person here, on Yom Kippur, how did she figure out it's a long day to fast 24 hours? And she fasted in the camp, in the anti-tank trench. And I went to her at noontime, and I wanted to offer her a little water that at 12 o'clock we used to get. No, I am fasting. Where is your God, Mom? She said, don't ever talk like this. It's not God's doing, it's evil men, like Hitler. We have to get out of here, we have to go home, inform the people so it never happens again. And she was 45 years old. So I didn't argue with her. In those days, we don't argue with mother. That's what she did. This went on. We were selected again to go. 500 people died out of 1,000. About 250 were able to walk, and we worked for 2 days. Finally, we reached the farm. Some of the people went in the stable, and one of those who spoke German, we went in the farm and overheard their meeting. Again, a German. He was asked, a guard, what can we do with those people? The Russians are coming. One said, let's burn them. It's enough straw there. They can die while burning them. The old Papa, we called him Papa because he was very nice. No way. The whole region will smell of human flesh. Then the Germans will find out the Russians will find out what the Germans did. Another said, let's shoot them. He said, no way. If I have the bullets, I protect myself. So next day at 4 o'clock, somebody went out. They disappeared. They left us in the middle of East Prussia, here, in a little town. We found ourselves without any guards. There were a couple of pigs where they were sleeping, the stable, and some girls took the pigs, cut it up, killed them, and tried to make some food for us. There was no bread, there was no rice, and they, because I couldn't, they ate almost the rear pork. And I wanted to take a piece of it. My mother, stop it. You're not supposed to eat pork. No, you can't eat it. So I didn't eat it. Next day, everybody was sick. So she proved her point. I should not eat pork. This is her faith, infallible. We were liberated on the 21st, and we walked home for 3 months. Walked, because we couldn't get in a truck. Russians were raping. They were in the war for how long, I don't know. They didn't care how did we look, so we did not want to go in the trucks with them. We walked home to Romania, from here to here. Empty house. My Piano was there. It was too heavy to take it away. A couple of beds. Next day, the first friend came. There were no Jews in the town. A Christian girl who came to me with my sweet 16 velvet dress. She pulled off from the truck that emptied my house and put it in her closet that Clara will come back. They didn't know where I was. A nice velvet dress. I didn't have anything to wear, but I had a velvet dress with white lace color. Another boy who saved my accordion, put in the ground for 3 months probably. When the Germans left, he took out the box was completely shambles. But the accordion lived till I left Romania. I finished my college, I had a child. He had his son. He gave to his son the accordion. These were my Christian friends. As I said, I stopped finishing the sophomore class. They had notes, no books during the war. They gave me their notes. From April to September, I took exams for my sophomore, junior, and in September I went, with their help, I went to my senior year. So I didn't lose any schooling because of my Christian friends. Do you believe in coexistence? Yes. If not only tolerate that she's blonde, there is no blonde, she's blonde and I am brown, I dye my hair. But we are human beings. We are not the same. They are not two flowers the same. No, not two flowers. But we know the differences, we accept it, and if it's good, we follow it. If it's bad, we try to educate them. No hatred, no prejudice, no injustice. I believe we can do it if we survived all this. We survived, and I found out that nobody from my family came back. Only one, my mom. And my son came, God bless America. They don't let us come from Romania. It was communism. We waited 17 years. In communism, it wasn't a picnic. But finally, in France, I had some relatives, and then I didn't want to stay in France, in United States. My son was 7 years old, finished school here in United States, became a lawyer. I have 2 grandchildren. There is hope for living. Thank you for your attention. Early in the morning to get a sad, sad story. But you have to remember, there are films now, thanks God. There are a lot of artifacts. You have museums. But you saw a survivor who begs you to not forget and fight against prejudice. Promise? That's the kind of promise.